Hey, everybody, welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Kit. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe and hit that ring bell notification. That way, all of you are made aware when we upload new content upon our, you guessed it, YouTube channel. And today, we got ourselves a fun video. America's worst tank, the M27 or M247 Sergeant York by the Fat Electrician. But before everything else, I know in a recent React video, or Americans Learn video, we were checking out Caesar's Pizza by the Fat Electrician. And that week when I was doing a lot of, work here for Americans Learn and a few other things, I was dealing with a lot of personal stuff that week, and especially from the previous 2 years. And, things are getting better, but I like to apologize. Everyone, don't worry. I'm okay. It's just sometimes the tidal wave of bricks hits old Kit Kat, and I wanted to say to the Fat Electrician, that video about Caesar's Pizza, I didn't know was founded by a Marine, and that motivational speech at the end really plucked at the old heartstrings, and this week has been very productive and strong, and I want to thank everybody for your kind words and statements, staying strong as always, as we should all the time. And somebody's buzzing my phone. Oh, it's one of my friends. There you go. I'll keep that on mute. I'll respond a little bit later. But first of all, thank you again, everyone, for your kind words. And we do appreciate the support. But you know what's also pretty cool? For Americans Learn, the original link to this video is in the description box below. So please, as a cherry on top, support the original content creator. It's the right thing to do. It's one thing to do. Now let's find out about our worst tank ever, period, ever. Let's get our learn on in a 3, 2, and an uno and out.
Definitely one of the tanks of all time. Today we're talking about the M247 Sergeant York. For all intents and purposes, it is a futuristic anti-aircraft tank. Buh! You're so dumb, it's not a tank, it's a SPAG, a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun. Buh! Yeah, no, I'm aware, I just call it that because it's an armored vehicle with tracks and a big gun, which to 99.9% of people on the planet, it's a tank.
I'd call it a tank, too. I'm special like that.
Plus, I refuse to call it a SPAG because it sounds like a slur, okay?
Oh. Yeah, it kind of does. We're just going to call it a tank.
And if you don't believe me, if a tanker drives a tank, what is somebody that drives a SPAG called?
Why don't you type it in the comment section below? No, don't type it in the comment section below. Don't do it. Don't do it, Internet. Don't do it.
Now go call somebody that in public and see if you get slapped, all right? Just make it easy for everybody. Call it a tank. Anyways, the Sergeant York...
Side note, and don't say it in Chicago because it could get you punched in the mouth. Because, well, maybe downtown, because downtown Chicago is vacant. I saw a very depressing video, and I can confirm last month, February, I was downtown Chicago. Oh, all the buildings are being vacant. I remember when it was so vibrant.
is an anti-aircraft tank equipped with two 40mm Bofors capable of firing 240 rounds per minute. It's capable of firing a variety of different rounds, including a proximity fuse version, which we covered a couple of weeks ago, and if you watched that video, you would know that 240 proximity fuse rounds coming at you would be a pretty formidable opponent for any airborne adversary. But it gets better, because the Sergeant York is going to be equipped with a state-of-the-art radar system capable of tracking up to 48 different targets at any given moment, then automatically prioritizing which target is the biggest threat, and then it was going to send the signals to the turret to auto track and lock onto that target, and all the gunner has to do is pull the trigger. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you that America tried to create an anti-aircraft tank that was running on an aimbot. Okay, the key word here being trying, because that's not quite exactly what happened, but we're going to get into that right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Conflict of Nations, a free online PvP military-based strategy game. It is a World War III type scenario where you can pick your favorite country, or you can pick a state inside of the United States, because let's face it, that's the only way it's going to be fair to everybody else.
Yeah, that's right.
Personally, I like to play Iowa for obvious reasons, and every single time my first order...
Hold on. Let's see, hold on.
Nations, a free online PvP military-based strategy game. It is a World War III type scenario where you can pick your favorite country, or you can pick a state inside of the United...
Yeah, Illinois. But who lives in Illinois? So many people are leaving because the property taxes are too high.
United States, because let's face it, that's the only way it's going to be fair to everybody else. Personally, I like to play Iowa for obvious reasons, and every single time my first order of business is attacking cold California. I mean, Diet Canada. I mean... Minnesota. Once we turn Minnesota into Upper Iowa, I would usually turn my sights directly to Canada, but let's face it, at this day and age, Kendrick Lamar and the U.S. hockey team has already done that for me.
Let me hear you say, touchdown!
Now remember, this is a strategy-based game. You could be diplomatic, form an alliance, and work together. I mean, you could. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna build up my army with tanks, jets, and nuclear submarines and turn my sights to Nebraska and prove once and for all that our corn is better. And I know what you're thinking. How on earth are nuclear submarines gonna help in a battle between Nebraska and Iowa? They're not, but they're also cool, so shut up. Anyways, if you want to give it a try, it's available on both PC and mobile. And if you use my link and discount code down below, you're gonna get a 1-month free subscription and 13,000 free gold. Let's get back to the video. All right, so in order
All right. Hey, how are you going to strategize? Hey, Canada, you're going to be part of the family pretty soon. I think maybe even Greenland, too. That wasn't on my bingo card. Wasn't on my bingo card at all, period.
to understand the Sergeant York, we've got to have a little bit of the history of air defense as a whole. So once upon a time, airplanes were invented. They were then used in warfare. Everybody kind of looked up at the sky and went, huh, that's new. But
Yep, just like my scene from North by Northwest when it's an Alfred Hitchcock movie where the guy's in the field and the airplane starts shooting. So, yes, he's in danger, but I find that scene to be so funny. Kid, why would you laugh at it? See, I'm in a better mood. I'm in a better mood. Still a little bit stressed here and there, but I'm in a better mood.
luckily, new problems usually require the same old answers.
Hey, shoot that guy.
Now we're talking
Yeah.
like World War I, right? Warfare at this point in time, not that sophisticated. As far as weapons go, you've pretty much got guns and then bigger guns, right? There's no drones, there's no Hellfire missiles, none of that shit. So people just started shooting at it with whatever they had, everything from machine guns to 90mm artillery. And for America, one of the most effective weapons against planes proved to be none other than the Browning M250 caliber machine gun, created by none other than America's patron saint of hole punching, John Moses Browning. Now, does that seem a little crude by
Good.
today's standard, where we have specialized missiles and ammunition that know where the plane's at and blow up and track down the aircraft and blow it out of the sky? Absolutely, but it's perfect because it follows the KISS principle, right? What's the problem? Fast-moving planes are hard to hit. Cool, let's just shoot at it a lot with a machine gun. We'll hit it eventually. It's accuracy by volume.
Just keep shooting at it, Johnny. I will, Billy.
So World War II rolls around, planes get even faster. What do? We just shoot at it even more. You know what shoots more bullets than a single Browning M250 caliber machine gun? 4 Browning 50 caliber machine guns operating off of one trigger inside of the M45 quad mount. Okay,
Yeah.
This thing was like Frank's Red Hot, all right? We put that shit on everything. We were putting it on trucks, on armored personnel carriers. We had trailers
I put that ish on everything.
that we'd pull behind the Jeeps. It was everywhere. And the cool part about this, other than the fact that it's 4 50 caliber machine guns, is while it may not be the best thing around for shooting a plane out of the air for that very narrow application, it was a really good option for pretty much any problem that you could run into on the battlefield, right? You've got 4 50 caliber machine guns pointed up at the sky looking for enemy planes. There's no enemy planes, but there's a bunch of enemy soldiers over there. Oh, there were a bunch of enemy soldiers over there. And that's why the M45 quad mount stood the test of time, because we were still slapping this thing on the back of trucks during Vietnam. We weren't really shooting down a lot of planes with it, but you know what? Every time the trees started speaking, John Moses Browning had something to say back.
Did you chop down this tree?
Yeah.
No.
Seeing how effective this was, the American government was like, you know, it'd be cooler than 450 calibers on the back of a truck if we took even bigger machine guns and stuck them on top of a fucking tank. So they took an M24 Chaffee tank, took the turret off, slapped 2 40mm Bofors on it, and created the infamous M42 Duster. And they used it for pretty much the same thing, mobile deforestation. They would roll up with an M42 Duster, and they had a gigantic spotlight, and whenever they heard something, they would just blast the giant spotlight out into the woods and just mow everything down so the enemy was blinded by the light. Now, if you were hunting deer, would spotlighting like that be illegal? Depending on where you live, more than likely. However, we're not hunting deer, this is war, and as you all know, it's never a war crime the first time. So
That's right. The Emperor protects.
the M42 Duster becomes absolutely legendary among the men that use it in Vietnam. Time passes, we need to keep improving. Unfortunately, missile technology still not doing that great, so the best option we have is still accuracy by volume. How do we keep improving upon what we've already done? Let's get an even bigger gun. So they created one of my favorite vehicles of all time, the Vigilante. They took an M113 armored personnel carrier and slapped the biggest Gatling gun ever made.
God, it's so beautiful. It's beautiful. Why aren't we doing a video about this?
on top of it. Now, does that make it better? No, it doesn't, but it does make it way more scary. Could you imagine being held up in a building and you're like, oh, the Americans are here, and then they pull up with that monstrosity and a guy flips a switch and all those barrels start spinning right before that thing starts pissing 3,037 millimeter rounds per minute at your building? Buh! Sounds like just a bunch of wasted ammunition to me. Buh! Yeah, and this America,
it's going to hit the building. It's going to hit a lot of other things there too, Billy.
we don't run out of bullets, we run out of bad guys, homie. You have two options in life, really. You can A, run out of ammunition, or B, be $20 trillion in debt. Go ahead and ask the Americans which one they picked.
Guns. Lots of guns.
Then the US government came to the conclusion that missiles were going to be the way of the future, so they retired the Vigilante and replaced it with the Mauler, which was going to be an armored personnel carrier that carried a missile launcher that would fire anti-aircraft missiles. And to be honest with you, it kind of sucked for multiple reasons. One, missile technology still not that good at the time, so it wasn't very good at its job at shooting down enemy aircrafts. And then on top of it, it's a bunch of anti-aircraft missiles. It's not a giant machine gun that you can just aim at literally anything that's upsetting you. So the US government realizes, well, this isn't working. They look around and they're like, well, what do we have that is working? And the only thing that's kind of working is the M42 Duster, still putting in work until 1988. So they say, all right, accuracy by volume it is. They take the M42 Duster and the Vigilante, they kind of merge them together and they create
Brundlefly. They put one in pod A, the other one in pod B, and then they fuse it together. It's like that scene from The Fly, like at the ending. You go in there, I go in there. The machine rips us apart and puts us together in there. We'll be one big happy family. More human than I am alone.
create the VADS, the Vulcan Air Defense System, my favorite anti-aircraft weapon of all time. They took the same M113 personnel carrier and then slapped a 20mm Vulcan rotary cannon on top, capable of firing 6,000 rounds per minute. And again, it works kind of okay on enemy aircraft and even better on enemy everything else. Do I have any examples of this? Why, yes, I do. In 1989, during Operation Just Cause, when the United States military went into Panama to remove the dictator Manuel Noriega,
And why'd we do that? Just cause. It's an old joke from when I was, Marine Corps, Marine Corps was in there too, just cause. Why do we do it? Just cause. It's a joke. All right, never mind.
Bunch of his men were held up inside of a headquarters building, surrounded, to which the American forces told them, hey, you should probably go ahead and surrender, to which they were like, nah. To which the American commander said, all right, get the Vulcan up here. Go ahead and fire a warning shot at the front door.
Fire a warning shot.
Gunny, but it's an M224 60mm mortar.
I don't give a shit. Fire the fucking warning shot.
That's not. We don't do warning shots.
And here's what the building looked.
That's what I would have said. I'd be like, but Gunny, we don't do no warning shots. I know. Fire a warning shot. Okay.
Like after the warning shot, at which point all of the men inside were like, you know what? On second thought, actually, we will go ahead and surrender. The end. At this point, the problem now is that attack helicopters are a thing. Like the Soviet Union has the Mi-24 Hind, and there's a new.
God, man, that's such a crazy helicopter. If you ever play, only those that remember this. But Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction. On the second level, like when you beat the first two levels of the game, like it's an open world map, but in the second level where you get access to that MiG helicopter. I mean, that thing is just so beautiful and so much fun to play with. That is such a wonderful weapon of absolute unchecked destruction. I mean, it is just pure gold. That's my favorite helicopter in the game.
New tactic that's been developed called pop-up. Basically, an attack helicopter would fly nape of the earth, very close to the ground, hiding behind trees and other terrain features until it got close enough to your troops, and then it would just pop up and it would fire a missile, pop back down, and dip. By the time you realized you were getting shot at, the enemy was already gone, meaning that this weapon system was basically useless against this tactic, so America had to come up with a new weapon to counter this. So again, they look around at what's working. We've got the VADS. The VADS is working pretty good. Why isn't it working here? Well, it can't target and aim at the helicopter fast enough enough to respond before the helicopter fires its missile and takes off. So what if we made an anti-aircraft tank with big machine guns that had some super smart radar that would be able to sense the helicopter coming from miles away and just track it, and then the second it popped up, it would shoot it down before it could shoot at us? Sounds like a good idea. Let's put together a bid packet and then let people design one and see what they come up with. So they put together the criteria of what they're looking for. They're looking for a new anti-aircraft tank that's capable of keeping up with the M1 Abrams so it can protect them, and it needs to be able to use its radar systems to track up to 48 different targets at any given time, automatically prioritizing the most important target and auto-tracking that target. And then when it does fire, it needs to have up to a 50% hit rate from up to 2 miles away. Now that sounds pretty cool, but it is a pretty big undertaking. Like, that's a big ask for the technology at the time. Okay,
Yeah, I don't think we could really do that, right? Can we do this? Yes, we can.
you're not picking up what I'm putting down. What I'm trying to tell you is they basically have two different strategies for air defense at the time. Okay, we have the keep it simple, stupid method. Okay, let's get a big machine gun and shoot a lot of bullets till we hit the target. Okay, and it's really convenient because not only is it good for shooting down planes, machine guns work on pretty much everything, so it's a very versatile weapon. And then we have the cutting edge technology option, you know, things like missiles. Historically, they haven't worked that great up until this point because, well, missile technology just isn't that good. But the technology is going to get better eventually, right? But even then, the problem still remains that you now have a big weapon system with a very, very specific, narrow skill set that it needs to be used in, right? If you have a fucking tank that shoots anti-aircraft missiles and you're in a firefight with 300 guys on the ground, it's not really that helpful. So what if we merged the two together? What if we took the desired accuracy of a missile and then applied it to a couple of giant machine guns? Basically, what if we stuck an aimbot inside of the M42 Duster? It would be the perfect weapon. So they have the perfect plan. They have the perfect vision. The only problem is this is a pretty big ask for the technology of the late 1970s, early 1980s. So obviously we're just going to let the engineers with the military contractors do their thing and build the weapon the way we want it. No, absolutely not. The government steps in and is like, no, we
And here's where disaster comes.
need to cobble this thing together with a bunch of old shit that we've got laying around.
My offer is this. Nothing.
This new super
Godfather 2 is a work of art.
advanced anti-aircraft tank needs to be made out of the hull of an old Patton tank from World War II. In addition to that, instead of developing a new radar specifically designed for this mission set, I want you to just take a radar out of an F-16, you know, the radar for a fighter jet that's used to operating in open airspace with no objects around it whatsoever. Yeah, I want you to take that radar, shove it in this thing that's sitting on the ground, surrounded by other solid objects to fuck with the radar and just make it work. So 5 contractors get selected, the same guys that made the Vigilante, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Ford Aerospace, and General Electric all get
Well, at least it's not a Boeing. Too soon? Too soon.
to work on making a prototype. In the meantime, we got to come up with a cool name, right? Okay, it's going to be the super badass state-of-the-art tank. It's going to be just like this expert marksman with an aimbot inside of it that's capable of shooting and auto-tracking anything. What should we name it after? I know the answer. Let's name it after Alvin York, aka Sergeant York, the World War I hero that was a renowned sharpshooter. Makes perfect sense. That's a great name from a great man. Now we just have to build a tank
Oh, it's not going to do his name good, is it?
that lives up to that name, and to be honest with you, we're off to a horrible start. So blueprints for the prototypes get submitted. They pick the 2 best options. Those are from Ford Aerospace and General Dynamics. So they go ahead, they give Ford and General Dynamics $79 million each to build their prototype, and then they send them into testing to go head to head. In testing, they have the tanks out on the field. They have a bunch of drones fly by. The General Dynamics tank shoots down 19 drones, and the Ford tank shoots down 9. So naturally, they give General Dynamics the bid. I'm just kidding. They give it to Ford. Why the fuck would they do that? Well, apparently, they went ahead and decided that they liked the idea of having the 40 millimeter ammunition that Ford was using over the 35 millimeter ammunition that General Dynamics was using, even though the bid specified it could be any caliber between 30 and 40 millimeter.
Here's what I heard. Blah, 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 size, bigger. And bigger is better.
So
Well. Okay, boss.
Ford goes ahead and they get the bid with their tank that was literally less than half as effective as the General Dynamics version. So Ford then goes, takes the money, builds 4 prototypes, and then starts manufacturing like 150 more of these things. The prototypes get put into testing and they perform absolutely terrible. Now, the Sergeant York tank is supposed to be able to use its radar to lock onto enemies in 2 different ways. One, it can track motion, ideally the props on a helicopter spinning, and it'll lock onto that. And the backup is that it's got thermals so it can lock onto heat signatures. Again, this is being being powered by a radar that's out of an F-16, which was designed to operate in open airspace. So that radar is confused by trees and buildings, and if the guns aim up, the gun barrels interfere with the radar as well. So it's pretty much confused about everything.
The tree is talking.
So in other words, it's like the computer. It's like from The Fly, you know. It doesn't understand that there, you know, it didn't understand. It didn't understand that there were two organisms inside the pod. It fused us together. It didn't understand.
Tree? I am no tree.
If that wasn't bad enough, due to all the added weight from the 240mm Bofors and the radar and all the other equipment that's packed inside of this thing, it weighed way more than it was supposed to, meaning that it was too slow to keep up with the M1 Abrams, which was its entire point for existing. Eventually, some politicians start asking questions, which means journalists start asking questions, then they start writing articles, and then there's public outcry that the government's wasting money on this tank. So in 1984, the Secretary of Defense, Caspar Weinberger, steps in and he's like, you know what? We're going to figure out if this thing actually works with even more testing. And this testing is going to cost $54 million.
Can I have that money?
Now it's getting covered by the press. They've got the Sergeant York out there doing this expensive testing, and it's not able to shoot down a single drone that's moving like an actual combatant would move. So then they resort to just flying the drones low and slow in a straight fucking line, which is something an enemy aircraft would never do, and it still can't hit. But then it finally grazes one.
But I ticked it. It hit the bat.
You're still out.
You're still fat.
Hey, body positivity.
Now, it doesn't shoot the drone down, but it did damage it. And according to protocol, the dude running the drone immediately hits the self-destruct button to blow it up. That way the drone didn't fly off and crash into something important, which is exactly what he was supposed to do. But all the journalists that were there interpreted that as the Army trying to rig the testing to make the Sergeant York look like it was effective. So now there's even more public outcry that we need to quit wasting money on this tank because the Army has invested billions upon billions of dollars in this thing and it simply doesn't work. So then they go out and they have the helicopter drone just hover, which is something that would never ever happen, but that's what they do. And the York still cannot shoot down the drone. So then they add a bunch of radar reflectors to make it even more obvious to the York's radar where this helicopter is and have it be completely stationary. One of the lead journalists on this story described this as the equivalent to, and I quote, testing a bloodhound's ability to track a man by covering him with beef steaks and standing him still alone upright in the middle of a parking lot.
And that dog still didn't hunt.
The Army is like, no, it works. It works and it's awesome. You know what we're going to do? Let's go. We're going to have a bunch of British officers and Australian high-ranking officers and Congress people that doubt us and bring them out to the field, and we're going to put on a demonstration and show them how awesome this thing is. And
See, now, that's where the Marine Corps comes in. See, we don't waste our money like that because we don't get no money. We improvise. There you go. And we acquire. We don't steal. We're gentlemen.
you know what? While we're at it, you know who else would love to see how effective this tank is? Alvin York's widow, who is 82 years old. We should bring her out here with...
God damn it, Army. You didn't do that, did you?
Congress and show off the awesome tank that we named after her husband. So that's what they do. They go out to the training field, they get a nice set of aluminum bleachers, you know, the ones that burn your ass every time you go to your nephew's Little League game, those ones, and they set them out there. They get Congress, a bunch of high-ranking foreign military guys, and Alvin York's widow sitting out there looking at the Sergeant York on the practice field, and the only thing in eyesight is the latrine. The demonstration kicks off, the first drone's flying by, the operators inside the Sergeant York turn on the radar. It's supposed to auto-lock onto the helicopter. It's literally the only thing that's moving. And instead of beaming up to lock onto this helicopter drone, it immediately pans over and aims at the latrine because it sees the movement from the exhaust fan and interprets that as the closest viable target and aims at that instead. Drone finishes its flyby. Nothing happened. Okay, drone loops back around to do another flyby. Operators inside the Sergeant York are like, okay, rough start. No big deal. We locked onto the shitter instead of the helicopter. It's fine. Let's switch over to heat signature. So they switch over to lock onto a heat signature.
It locks onto the latrine because there's a lot of heat in the shit. I didn't mean to swear.
And it does exactly what it was programmed to do. It locks on to the closest heat signature, which is not the helicopter, it's the hot-ass bleachers with all the congressional members of Alvin York's Widow on it. So now Congress and Alvin York's Widow are looking down the barrels of two 40mm Bofors, at which point everybody begins running and jumping off of these bleachers for obvious reasons. Some of the Congress people and military officers get hurt, they twist their ankles, whatever, and obviously this ends up being the end of the Sergeant York program, and it is considered a gigantic failure.
What, are we returning Chris? Keep my name out your mouth.
Today, there's only a couple left in existence. There's one in the Alvin York Historical Park in Tennessee, and the other one is inside of the Air Defense Training Facility at Fort Sill, both of which stand as gigantic 54-ton, $8 billion examples of you should probably just follow the KISS principle and keep it simple, stupid. Speaking of the Air Defense Training Facility, I do have to give a special thank you to Corey, the curator of that facility, and Fort Sill as a whole for letting me and my friend Ethan, Mr. Habitual Line Crosser here on YouTube, to come on to post and get an exclusive tour for our new Pepperbox exclusive TV show, Habitually Fat. That tour is where I got a lot of this information, and we filmed the entire thing, and that is our first episode ever, and it is up on Pepperbox right now if you wanted to go check it out.
Aircraft circles back around. Now we're using the heat-seeking option. And so this thing, again, switch the system on, everything checks out immediately. We pick up two targets. Now the catch is, we've got an aircraft inbound, but we've also set up some nice aluminum bleachers off here, off to the side, and it begins to track on those aluminum bleachers. And Congress finds themselves looking down the barrels of two hot 40mm. At that point, basically, they jump off of the bleachers. You get sprained ankles. When you hurt Congress, that's going to be the end.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Not to mention, some of those congressmen and women are still young whippersnappers. They're not the old dogs that they are there. Hey, Nancy, how's your portfolio doing? All these politicians doing insider trading. I don't know. Ask me how I feel about Congress and insider trading. Getting rich, huh? You know, they don't get penalized either. They don't get a slap on the wrist. They get a little pat on the wrist, like, don't do that again, and they go right on doing it.
End of your program.
It worked perfect. Why are they mad?
It worked perfectly, just
It's
not
on the shit house and the politicians. It's perfect. It's a perfect machine. Yes. It hates piles of shit. It's awesome. This is my new favorite tank. Oh, yes. Thank you for watching. Best of sports channels. Go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out. Oh, yeah, and don't forget to go check out Conflict of Nations. You get to pick your favorite country, mainly America.
Hey, look. California win Chinese. They win China, I guess. There you go. There's a Red Terror. There you go.
Or, if you like losing, you can pick somebody else. Don't forget to use my code to get all the freebies. I'm going to go find a beer.
There you go. There you go.
I've said it once, and I will say it again. There is absolutely nothing politicians won't fuck up.
Except their stock portfolio, buddy. Except their stock portfolio. That's what they'll excel at. Why? Because if you think Congress loves you, they don't. Look, they're all doing it. They're all doing insider trading, okay? They're all doing it. And when Doge revealed all that government waste, did you notice how some were like, oh, I didn't know that was happening? I didn't know that was... No, they knew. They knew. There's no such thing as an innocent congressman or woman or U.S. senator. Only varying degrees of guilt. I had to put in my 40K reference. They're doing insider trading, man. Look at their stock portfolios. They're doing pretty well. It's like they got a cheat code or something. I'm just saying. You know I'm correct. Don't debate me.